Well, the Trump administration has released a restructured broadband policy after placing it on hold to re-examine how it's being implemented. State offices are now reviewing the changes and how they could impact local networks. Connected Nation Chairman and CEO Tom Ferree joins us now for a closer look. And thank you so much, Tom, for joining us today. Explain what is happening with this current funding. Bring us up to date.
Sure, Tammy. Well, thanks for having me this morning. It's great to be with you and your listeners here on this Friday the 13th. Hopefully, we'll make it a lucky one. Well, as you mentioned, after the long wait from the spring, the Trump administration has released new guidance, we call a policy notice, that resets some of the rules for the BEAD program. That's the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, otherwise known as BEAD, the $42.5 billion program that's intended to get rural infrastructure, along with others, broadband infrastructure out into rural America. And so there's been a bit of a rush here. We've been a lot of anticipation, a lot of want and intrigue, but that has all been removed as of last week. And so states now are really devouring the new notice, trying to understand what that means for basically one of the chief complaints was the 30 months with no shovels in the ground on these projects. And so now the new rules are intended to ease some of the regulatory burdens that the administration saw, also open up the program to a bit more of the alternate technologies. Some of the rules in the prior program favored some technologies over others, most notably fiber. And so what they really want to do is by increasing the competition and stripping back some of the regulation, thinking that they can now lower the costs and increase the speed to deployment. And therefore, as Secretary Lutnick says, deliver on the benefit of the bargain for the American taxpayer.
Right. Sounds like this is a move in the right direction. So you've mentioned some of those changes and the deployment. What does this mean specifically for those rural areas? Because they seem to kind of lag behind in getting that.
Well, that's true. And so what it will mean, obviously, is with the increased competition and the entertaining of alternate technologies, you may see where in the past some of these plans favored a deployment that consists of mainly fiber. Now you might see things like low Earth orbiting satellites. You may see fixed wireless. And so really the competition has been opened up a bit more. Now what that means for some states is they're going to have to take the benefit of those 3 years of planning now and kind of recast some of those plans in light of these new rules. So you'll see them reevaluating where are some of the eligible areas and potentially rebidding some of these applications, if you will, to serve those areas that could introduce new and lower cost technologies into the fray. Hopefully what that means is, and the commitment from the secretary is to get all of this money, the $42.5 billion, out the door to those state coffers before the end of the year. That would be a huge step. And of course, followed behind that is the actual active implementation. But sub-grantee selection, the providers that will be vying for the right to build out in these areas, hopefully will be known here as we head into post-Labor Day season.
So what about the affordability component that provided low-cost internet access for low-income households?
Well, that's a very important piece, Tammy, and that still is in there. What you will see, though, is a less prescriptive take on establishing rates. That was one of the regulatory challenges that this administration has with the former program, so you'll see an easing of that. But the low-income households will still have to meet certain criteria to establish themselves as an eligible household for that benefit. But again, that provision still stays intact, just with a less prescriptive attempted rate regulation.
All right, this is a great update. That's Connected Nation Chairman and CEO Tom Ferree. Thank you so much for joining us today with that update.